The trap with selling drugs is Satan's master scheme, because almost everybody says you never get high on your own supply, but almost everybody who sells drugs, it's inevitable that you will down the road use or consume. You have some type of vice. You know, you're around it. You're around addicts. You're around that lifestyle. It becomes a normality for you to see people juggling other addictions, and you start. You know, with me, it was cigarettes. It led to weed in my teenage years. And people say weed is a gateway drug. Weed is what makes being high, in my eyes, it creates a sense of this being a normality. And that led to other things, to, you know, some alcohol at parties, to a couple lines of, you know, here and there of some cocaine, to let me try some ecstasy with this girl. And, you know, when I was young, I tried it all. And the addiction end of it came up and happened more so when I got out of prison the first time. So when I was 20, I went to prison. I didn't tell you. I grew up around, I had my Christian community, but I also had the community that I grew up around, you know, and what I saw growing up. So I guess the lure to the world started young, man. I mean, I was like, it started with music, certain type of culture, a certain type of dress. Around 13, 14 years old, when I started breakdancing in school. You know, I had a little crew of homeboys. We used to break dance, and that became the thing to do. I started resenting certain things about the church and my upbringing. I'm like, man, everything is no, you know, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. I had a brother who had just come home from prison. Him and I became, not only were we brothers, but like best friends. I respected my brother a lot. I still respect my brother a lot. He demanded respect. He knew people. He had a way with crowds. He had a power over people. He had a way to move around that I admired about him a lot. And I started looking up to the way that he moved, the things that he did, and I began to see ways to escape the situation I was in, and at the same time, enjoy my life, or so I thought I was enjoying my life.
As a child growing up in this, you think this is normal. This is what everyone goes through. And you don't know that there's a better way to do life. You just don't understand that. And so your picture of the world is myopic, your picture of God is very closed, and your picture of self is less than pure. The problems are that long term, this doesn't go away without help.
I felt like it was possible for me to succeed even though I had failed and dropped out of school and I was in this situation. I see these guys' success. I started losing this focus. I started losing a sense of identity. So like I always remembered my upbringing, even though I stepped away, I was always kind of, you know, focused on my family. I'm doing this for my wife and kids. And I think somewhere around like 19, 20, I started getting consumed by the attention. I was making a lot of money, bro. I was moving a lot of stuff. I was young. I had never had attention from females, from other than my, you know, just women, and everybody wants to be your friend. And I got caught up in this social circle of people that sell drugs, do drugs, buy drugs. And I was like, you know, I started basking in some type of illusion of celebrity. Like you feel like you're some kind of celebrity. While I was doing all this stuff, I had this, I'm hanging out with a bunch of high school kids. Again, I was 20 years old, so we were all kids. Nobody had gone to prison. Nobody had seen any consequences other than my older brother and his crew. But I had my own little circle of people. Nobody was really, all we saw was the money, the hanging out, the partying, and we weren't really doing anything but that. I got lucky that I was 20 years old. I was under 21, and I had never gotten any charges in Florida. So I was looking at like 15 years, and reality hit me, man. I reached out to my family. It's the first time in like 5 years I thought about the Lord, man. I'm in prison. I hit my knees and trying to, like, Lord, what happened to me. You know, when all that was pulled away from me, I had like a moment of clarity in life, and I'm like, man, I'm praying, asking the Lord, you know, Lord, forgive me at this point. And I never felt forgiveness. I always felt like, oh man, I went too far, you know. I wasn't yet involved with any type of gang or anything like that, but I hung around them. I knew them through my oldest brother, but that wasn't my life yet. That became my life when I went to prison. I was approached by a couple Latin kings. I had mentioned to somebody that my brother was a king and who he was. Well, one of them so happened to know one of the kings that I mentioned from Orlando, and then he got on the phone with them, and one thing led to the next. Next thing you know, that's where, you know, they had me as a prospect, and I went through the process. Before I got out, I was a king, bro. I get out, I'm like 24 years old, bro. I'm on probation. My family tried to help me. I started going to church. I started taking my wife to church. We reconciled our differences. We moved in with my parents, and here's what's so crazy. I was completely clean. I landed a job at a place called America's Auction Network. They did auctions on television, selling jewelry and antiques and art. And I ended up being an auctioneer on TV. I was a TV show host for like, out of prison, so they used to make me wear long sleeves and gloves. So God opened some doors for me, and I shut them. I made a bunch of money when I was young. And I wanted a certain, I remember that lifestyle, and I wanted that financial freedom. I got sucked right back into the same thing. I still hadn't learned my lesson. So I started doing the same thing. I validated my drug use with the fact, so I was a functioning addict. So in my mind, you know, you're not a junkie, or you're not that was the mindset. Right? I'm not a junkie if I'm paying my bills, juggling my finances, and doing all this stuff, and I'm not letting people really see or into what I'm doing. I'm keeping it to myself. I'll do one or two. Everybody knows I smoke weed, but nobody knows I'm doing this. I junk out, I lose everything. I lose my wife, lose my kids. I end up in the street doing tattoos. I used to do tattoos. So it got to the point where I lost that job, and the pills that I was getting, I couldn't sell. I sold enough to get more, you know what I'm saying? And then pretty much just use. So I'd become a complete junkie. So like that year, bro, I felt like that's the lowest I'd ever been in my life. I lost a lot of respect from people. I felt I was completely broken, man. So I just felt a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. I would pray, I would angry pray. I had yet to accept responsibility for there was always reasons for why I did what I did. You know, we always create these excuses and reasons for what we do. So I hit a pit of depression like I never felt in my life. Normally in prison, I would, you know, the last times I was incarcerated, I would get up, I would work out, I had a routine, I had these people to, you know, entertain my day. I had no motivation. I felt hopeless. I reached a point where I didn't see any hope for my life to be anything but what it was. I would look and think of there was no possible way that I could get out at almost 40 years old and rectify anything that I had done. There's no way that I can make or affect my kids' lives in any way but a negative one. I lost the hope of them forgiving me or ever being able to view me or see me in any other kind of way than some drugged up idiot that, you know what I'm saying, this is a redundant occurrence in my life.
It's so important to have that light at the end of the tunnel, that if we have that goal that we're working towards, that hope that things really can get better, the hope that a relationship could be restored or a situation can be reconciled or whatever that might be, to be able to have your eye on that prize, so to speak, allows us to do the really difficult work. When things get really hard, if we have something that we're striving for, that hope keeps us going even when we feel like we can't go on.
They started giving me some medication for manic bipolar. It's called Zyprexa. And my bunkie would take Zyprexa, and it's a super strong medication, man. It'll almost knock you out, man. You take like 2 or 3 of them, you know what I'm saying? Zyprexa will put you in the hospital. You take like 4 or 5 of them. If you take like 20 of them, it'll probably kill you, you know? So I get this idea, man, that I'm gonna make this easy and I'm just gonna take 20 pills and go to sleep and just end it, you know. I had nothing to come home to.
When a person starts to contemplate suicide, you know, they have already been through a lot of thoughts, a lot of thinking. You know, they contemplate, they plan, right? So one of the things that we look for is just hopelessness. And if an individual is at a place in their life where they don't see anybody that can help them, they have helplessness, right? Nobody can help me, I'm stuck. I'll never get out of this mindset. I'll never get out of this problem. So then, you know, the natural thought that comes next is, well, I'm just going to end it. I'm going to escape it, right? It's almost like they're trying to solve a problem, but really you're making the problem permanent when you end your life. So it's really hopelessness combined with impulsivity, right? Because a lot of times when a person is going through a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, they can become even chemically dysregulated in their brain, and they become more impulsive, right? So in one of these impulsive acts, they may do something that they can't take back.
I was gonna end it. I was gonna save up these pills. I was gonna go to sleep and not wake up. So I hit the compound. I'm walking head down on my way to the chow hall, and I'm about to do this for real. I'm gonna go eat this. Don't even have a desire to eat, but I'm there, you know, it's chicken sandwiches. As I'm walking to where I'm supposed to sit down, I see the table before, on the row before, and there's an older Hispanic man and another Hispanic gentleman, an older man with a beard. I'll never forget, he looked so wild to me, man. He looked like, a Hispanic Santa Claus is the best way I could describe him. You know, he was just, and I don't know, you know, I do know it was the Lord, man. It was God, man. And I just decided to drop my tray there and sit down with these dudes instead of going where I would normally go. And when I sat down, I sat my tray in front of them, and I'm just like looking at my tray. I just really didn't have the appetite, but I'm there, it's chicken sandwiches. And this guy, his hands start shaking, and he looks up at me, and he's like, I don't want to offend you in any way. I'm not trying to hurt you. I mean, I hope you don't take offense to this, but I just want you to know the Holy Spirit put in me to tell you that you're forgiven and God has a purpose for you, bro. Dude, I died. Like I just start crying immediately, bro. I'm like, immediately I felt peace, like, because what I felt was impossible. One, the unbelief was gone, because I'm like, God is real. You know what I mean? All this unbelief that I had. Two, I'm forgiven. I had hope immediately for life again. I'm like, man, Lord, you forgive me, Lord. Boom. So I go back. I felt, man, I'm in tears. I'm like, Lord, you've been there this whole time. Forgive me for this. All of a sudden, I felt repentant for everything that I'd done. I hadn't felt no remorse. Bro, instant remorse. I'm repenting.
That oxytocin release in the midst of pain can actually bring tremendous bonding. It can bring us closer than we ever imagined to God. And it actually can be very, very healing as we go through that process, because even though it's not something we want and it feels terrible, but in that is redemption, in that is grace, in that is power. And that's reminds me of even where Paul says, right? He says, in my weakness, I am made strong. Because when we realize that weakness and we realize our need, but then we cling to God in the midst of the suffering, this actually bonds us that much stronger to Him.
We believe in a God that can do all kinds of things, that can create miracles and that can heal. But there sometimes needs to be a walking out of that healing. One example that I use with some patients that might struggle with seeing that where's God's miracle, I use the example of the Israelites in the desert, where God might have freed them rather rapidly from slavery, but it took them 40 years of wandering in the desert to be able to lose the mentality of being a slave before they walked into the promised land. So while sometimes we might see an instantaneous miracle in our lives, like I mentioned with trauma and building your identity around it, we can end depression as well. we can take some time into having to lose that identity of depression or lose that identity of the traumatized individual. And so that's where the church can help bridge that gap.
Man, everything changed, man. I was dabbling with drugs in there. I left the drugs alone completely in there. My whole entire life changed. Immediately, God started restoring all my relationships with family. I thought I would have to get out of prison before I would see those things fixed, and it restored my relationship with my mom, my dad, my brother. I can't erase the past, but I can change who I am moving forward. And I can't do that on my own, but with Christ I can do that. And He has sustained me since I've been out. He has opened doors in the church, with family, job opportunities. Bro, I hadn't touched a welder in 7 years. I got a great job welding aluminum and TIG. I got a car, I got money. I mean, forget the material things, but He has made my life more than it was before. No matter how far you think, there's no amount of sin, there's no pit deep enough, there's no amount of drugs, there's no amount of time that you can be separated from God that He won't be able to reach in, and that His Spirit and the power of the Holy Spirit to save won't affect, because I'm proof of that, man. I'm proof of that. My name is Jonathan. I'm a former Latin king, now a disciple of Christ, and I serve the King of Kings.